Hi, my name is Michelle Arujo, and I choose to do my topic exploration on panic disorders. Here is a video from Dr. Scott Bay at the Cleveland Clinic with a little rundown on what panic disorder is.
Panic disorder is a very common condition in anxiety as well. This is characterized by very intense periods of fear. You can feel great waves of tension coming over you. These would be characterized by things like palpitations, feeling sweaty, gastrointestinal distress, feelings of unreality, even things like feeling like you're choking, feeling like you're out of your body would be common symptoms. Often people are distressed and feeling as though they could die, maybe lose control or do something very impulsive. These are discrete periods. They often don't last more than 10 minutes, but that occurrence becomes a very catastrophic event, and people can actually start to anticipate recurrences significantly. That's really the hallmark of panic disorder, is that people start to anticipate recurrence, thinking, will this happen again, and where will this happen again? So there are common places that people with panic might want to avoid. They'd want to avoid crowds, crowded places, grocery store lines, theaters, any place where there'd be a possibility that they could not escape. When they start to avoid, it creates problems. Their lives become narrower. If it becomes too great, they can develop a condition known as agoraphobia. And agoraphobia is really a great avoidance of many, many situations. In the worst case scenario, people with agoraphobia have a hard time leaving their homes. Sometimes agoraphobia can occur without panic, but more commonly, we see panic disorder occurring with agoraphobia. So these are very debilitating conditions, create lots of interference. People with these disorders often become dependent on others, often are not able to drive or take care of a business. Even going into grocery stores would be a real ordeal for such people.
So, a panic disorder is when a person has recurring panic attacks and worries constantly about when they'll have another attack. There are no consistent triggers, and the attacks can happen at any time. A panic attack is a short period of time where the person feels intense or discomfort as well as symptoms. Some of the symptoms include heart palpitations, chest discomfort, sweating, trembling, nausea, numbness or tingling, hot cold flashes, feeling short of breath, dizzy, fear of losing oneself, or fear of dying. Like I said on the previous slide, a panic disorder is really distinguished by how unpredictable the panic attacks are. There's nothing consistent that triggers the attack. One day it may be the sight of a dog on the way to school. Another day it might be a homework assignment. If the student is predictably frightened by something, then it's considered a phobia. And phobias would be scared of spiders, arachnophobia, stuff like that. In the classroom, a student with panic disorder may repeatedly interrupt activities, and it may seem like it's coming out of nowhere. They most likely have low self-esteem, learning disorders, and have difficulty concentrating. All of these things will make students have a hard time transitioning from their safe place at home to school. They may struggle to attend school, and if the disorder is diagnosed, they may have medication side effects to contend with at school on top of everything else. I wish they knew how much time, dedication, tears, breakdowns, and energy it can take to get an assignment done. Jennifer Skinto. I found this fantastic website, themighty.com, that has lots of resources on many disabilities, disorders, and illnesses. There are several quotes throughout my presentation from this website from students who have panic disorder. It's one thing to research the disorder, but it's another to get firsthand accounts from kids who suffer with this every day. A student with panic disorder would be diagnosed as having an emotional disturbance. IDEA defines emotional disturbance as a condition exhibiting one or more of the following characteristics over a long period of time and to a marked degree that adversely affects a child's educational performance. The biggest criteria that apply to panic disorder are inappropriate types of behavior or feelings under normal conditions, a general pervasive mood of unhappiness or depression, and a tendency to develop physical symptoms or fears associated with personal or school problems. I wish it was easier to have absences excused. I'd much rather stay home than go and cry in class. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. I've had panic attacks in the classroom where I just couldn't stop crying. Lee Drawling. This quote could come from many students with panic disorder. It's something I'll return to at the end of my presentation for my discussion question. The biggest implications for students with panic disorder is the amount of class time that's missed. If a student is concerned about their next panic attack, they're not thinking about what work needs to be done or concentrating on what the teacher is saying. They may physically be in the classroom, but mentally they're a world away. Physically, a student may miss a lot of class time for many reasons. They may be struggling from the transition of home to school. They may need to talk to their safe person at school before entering the classroom. They may need to visit the nurse to receive medication, or they might just stay home to avoid all of their problems. This can cause added panic attacks because of classwork building up or feeling more separated from their peers because of the time that they are out of the classroom. When I abruptly leave the room, please don't make it a big deal. Paige Johnson. Having a student with panic disorder can be frustrating, especially with absences, tardies, and unexpected departures. Students with this disorder have a difficult enough time surviving through the day without having to hear from classmates how a teacher spoke negatively about their departure or being called out while leaving the room. For teaching strategies, first and foremost, the teacher needs to build a relationship with the student so the student feels comfortable being in the class. Getting the student through the doors is the first hurdle. Keeping them there is the next. Identify a safe place in the school for the student to go when they feel an attack coming on. This may be a spot in the classroom, the library, the office, or the nurse's office, and those are some examples. This needs to be a place the student feels comfortable and should be used as a place for the student to regroup. Check in with the student at the beginning of the day or at the beginning of the class period, depending on your role at the school, and see where their mind is at. Is it a good day, or did the student already come into school filled with anxiety? Remind the student that you are there for them if they need anything. Students with panic disorder often struggle with their peers. They are considered weird because of their attacks and often miss out on social interactions because of their absences and tardies. Provide assistance to the students with their peers. This can be done by not making a big deal if the student needs to leave the room or has an attack in class. Treat them as normal as possible while still being respectful to their needs. Other students in the class look to the teacher for guidance, so showing them that the student is a part of the class and should be treated as much can go a long way. Usually it strikes out of nowhere and I have no control over it. I'm not trying to get out of anything or trying to get attention. I feel like I'm going to die when my panic starts and can only calm down if allowed to escape to a quiet place. Then I can calm myself down and return to class. Anita Contreras Munoz. Some teachers and other students may see the frequent absences or leaving class to go to their safe place as an excuse to avoid work. Students with panic disorder need that escape to regroup and return to their baseline and return to the class. They don't want the unwanted attention. It only adds to their panic. So for modifications, students with panic disorder can struggle with deadlines and time limits. Providing more time to complete certain types of assignments can help to reduce that stress and ultimately help to reduce panic attacks. There are certain assignments this may not be possible for, so it's up to the teacher and the student communicating to find the best solution. Tests are something that bring panic to a lot of students, not just students with panic disorder. Reformatting tests to reduce anxiety, such as offering multiple choice, can help to reduce that stress. This is not always possible, so having an option for the student to orally take the test could give them the same test, but presented in a way that puts the student more at ease. Also, providing a separate test-taking area and giving extra time can help reduce panic in students. As with all modifications and accommodations, the most important thing is knowing your student and what works best for them. Students with panic disorder may struggle with transitions, such as classes changing, if there's an assembly for the day, or the transition from the beginning of the day or the end of the day. Having tasks for them to do during these times, such as helping in the classroom, the office, or the library, may help reduce any panic caused during those times. Providing a task or job for them to do keeps their mind focused on something different besides the stress of the transition. Students may need alternatives to avoid people or situations that can cause the panic attacks. providing an alternative entrance into school, letting students leave a minute before class ends to reduce activity in the hallway, or providing an alternative place to eat during lunchtime are all alternatives to prevent that added panic. Having the student sit next to the door, if they frequently leave the room for different reasons, lets the student know they can escape quickly if needed, and it also reduces the amount of interruption and distraction in the classroom for the teacher and for the rest of the students. If leaving the room is not a problem for the student, perhaps providing a seat near the teacher who the student is comfortable with may give the student a feeling of safety. For students that need to write notes in class, providing them with written notes would be useful, as well as allowing students to record the lesson, whether a tape recorder or a laptop or iPad. For students who are frequently absent from class, matching them with a buddy in the class would be a way for the student to not miss as much work. So after reading and researching panic disorder, one of the biggest problems for students is the stress of attending school. This will be my 6th year working at the high school level, and I've worked with several students who I would consider to have panic disorder or a similar diagnosis. Most of these students, from my experience, are incredibly smart, and if not for their disorder, would be in mainstream classes with no supports. I've had several students over the past couple of years make the decision to stay home and sign up for online high school instead of attending actual high school. I personally go back and forth on this decision. On one side, I can see how the students and their families would find this to be the best choice. On the other side, I struggle with if the student is receiving the extra help that they could receive if they were attending actual school. I also question if secluding themselves more will benefit them in the long run, or if it could lead to a more severe condition such as agoraphobia, which was mentioned in the video at the beginning of the presentation. So my discussion question for this assignment is, many students with panic disorder would rather stay home than attend school, which was also mentioned in the quote earlier on in the presentation. With the availability of online high schools, is it fair to want students to attend school instead of staying home? And I'd really like to get some opinions on that, because like I said, I struggle going both ways. Thank you for listening, and hopefully you've learned something about panic disorder.